When Andrew Yang endorsed Biden after the Michigan primary, a lot of people began calling Yang a sellout or a traitor for not supporting Bernie Sanders. Now, while critiques towards Yang and Biden are perfectly understandable, the phrase traitor really doesn't make sense to me. Because if you're going to betray someone, that means you have to have been loyal to them in the first place. Now, Yang has said several times that he voted for Bernie in 2016, but that was a lot more for camaraderie than actual loyalty or swearing support towards anyone, because the moment he entered the presidential race, any obligation he had to Bernie was thrown out the window. They were in competition with one another, regardless of what anyone says. Now, throughout the campaign trail, it was obvious that Andrew Yang was there mostly to push this platform, specifically UBI, but he did have multiple other policies on his website that were actually very popular by the majority of the people. In fact, if you have time, go ahead and go to his website. It actually still has really interesting policies that Democrats and Republicans still don't talk about, most of which are actually very bipartisan. With that being said, if you actually took a look at Andrew Yang's policy page, you would actually see that his policies were very different from Bernie Sanders. On a few instances, the most notable ones is that Bernie Sanders was supportive of Medicare for all, Andrew Yang wanted public option. In terms of climate change, Bernie Sanders wanted to declare national emergency for climate change, Andrew Yang didn't. Andrew Yang was a staunch supporter of nuclear power, and Bernie Sanders was against it anytime he was ever thrown that question. Bernie Sanders wanted a $15 minimum wage. Andrew Yang said that would cause more automation and it would lead to the loss of thousands of more jobs. Bernie Sanders wanted free college, and Andrew Yang did not want free college. He wanted free vocational schools and free community college. Even in terms of wealth tax, Bernie Sanders wanted a wealth tax for the 1% and the extremely rich. Andrew Yang said that would just lead to more tax evasion, and he actually wanted a VAT tax to afford his UBI. The two of them had completely different ideas of how to successfully lead the country. With that said, since Andrew Yang had a whole completely different type of campaign than Bernie Sanders, in no way did he have to support Bernie Sanders in anything. They contrasted each other on multiple points. Even if Andrew Yang wanted or supported Bernie Sanders in some way, that wasn't necessarily a guarantee of his own platform. Now, there's this idea that if you voted for someone, you have to vote for them for life, but that isn't at all true. In many instances, Joe Biden and many of the other moderates actually had more overlap with Andrew Yang than Bernie Sanders did.
We're automating away the most common jobs in the economy right now.
As you know, automation is transforming our economy.
It's not this cliff that we're heading towards. It's actually more of a curve that we're on. What I've been telling people is that we're in the third inning now.
And we can't pretend that it can just be stopped or reversed.
If you look at it, technology is already doing a number on each of these jobs.
So it's not about stopping or reversing technology.
But it's going to be very, very bad for many people and communities. So we have to actually change the measuring sticks to something that would actually make our economy work for us.
It is about making sure that the tectonic social and economic changes that it could drive are changes that can actually work for us.
I was with Mayor Michael Tubbs of Stockton, California. We're talking about universal basic income, which is another name this goes by. Raise your hand if you've heard of universal basic income.
There's an experiment going on right now in the city of Stockton with what's called universal basic income.
All right, so if you haven't, now you have. Universal basic income is just a policy where everyone gets a certain amount of money.
Where they're actually simply distributing payments to people to make sure that that income floor is lifted.
57% of Americans can't afford an unexpected $500 bill.
The idea is there are too many Americans who couldn't find even $400 in an emergency.
We have to accelerate both our economy and society and broaden our definitions of both work and value.
Maybe we ought to broaden our definition of work.
So I don't think there's actually any legitimacy when people say that Andrew Yang should have supported Bernie Sanders for so and so reason. Now, some people say that if Andrew Yang had just endorsed Bernie Sanders earlier, Bernie Sanders could have won, but no, that likely wouldn't have happened, because even if Andrew Yang and Elizabeth Warren had both endorsed Bernie Sanders, it wouldn't have really expanded his base. It actually would have just vindicated the people who are already supporters of him. Because political nerds, people who follow politics, know exactly who Elizabeth Warren and Andrew Yang are. However, the vast majority of the people who do not follow politics on a day-to-day basis don't really care who Andrew Yang and Elizabeth Warren are. So even if they had both endorsed Bernie Sanders before Super Tuesday, it wouldn't have expanded his base to groups of people that are not already progressive. Bernie Sanders won the progressive vote. They were going to stick with him through thick and thin, and getting 2 more people that are well liked by progressives but not too much by moderates wouldn't have helped Bernie gain enough moderates in order for him to win. It would have just energized Bernie's already existing base, but it wouldn't have swayed enough undecided voters in order to beat Biden on Super Tuesday. And just to touch more on Super Tuesday, nobody could have predicted the phenomenon that was Super Tuesday when it happened. Never before in history had half the field dropped out just to endorse a single candidate. That was completely unprecedented and never happened before in modern elections. Nobody could have known how much of an impact that had on Super Tuesday. Because when you think about it, Joe Biden was losing so badly, it was impossible to tell how solid those endorsements would have been. Was Super Tuesday a whirlwind, or was it proof that people actually liked Joe Biden? If it was a whirlwind, what that meant was that Joe Biden got a boost, however, many people weren't actually supporters of him. If it was a solid base consolidation, that meant that more people would support Biden in the primaries to come. The term is called condorcet nominee, where if all other candidates are out of the field, would he win on a one-on-one basis? And the answer is, in this case, yeah. If Bernie Sanders went 1v1 versus Joe Biden, Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg, or any of the other moderates, could he have beaten them if it weren't a crowded field that split the moderate vote? Well, the answer came on March 10th primaries, when the elections proved that Bernie Sanders was actually losing groups of people that he had won in 2016. The March 10th primary confirmed what happened on Super Tuesday and showed that many people who helped him in 2016 were actually just anti-Hillary supporters, and that didn't translate to the 2020 election. Bernie Sanders' primary demographic was always the youth vote, yet ironically enough, the youth vote that he needed in order to win didn't turn out to vote, or rather, not in high enough numbers to actually help him win. In some areas, there were actually less youth voters in this cycle than 2016. Bernie Sanders actually had a lower youth turnout than Barack Obama did in 2008. In the end, the youth vote just wasn't a reliable demographic for Bernie Sanders to win, and 2 more people endorsing him, who aren't well known by average Americans who don't follow politics, wouldn't have made a big difference to help him win people who wouldn't have voted for him otherwise. And speaking of turnout, the irony is that the higher turnout rates in this primary in 2020, because we actually had more people voting in 2020 than 2016, that actually helped Joe Biden more than it did Bernie Sanders. You see, Bernie Sanders talked about more fairness in elections, so he actually advocated to have less caucuses in this cycle than the last cycle. Ironically enough, that ended up hurting Bernie Sanders. Caucuses overwhelmingly preferred Bernie Sanders, but when it came to fairer primary elections that allowed more quantities of people to vote, Bernie Sanders lost because of that. So you have a situation where the youth vote didn't save Bernie Sanders, anti-Hillary voters couldn't save Bernie Sanders, and higher turnout actually made more people vote against Bernie Sanders. At the end of the day, it wasn't some DNC conspiracy that helped him lose. It was just the Democratic voices of the majority of the Democratic Party. The unfortunate truth is that there are more moderates in the Democratic Party than there are progressives, and the progressives could not outnumber the moderate majority. And that's how moderate Voltron could beat Bernie Sanders. Even if Yang, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders had united into some sort of progressive Voltron, it wouldn't have been enough. Because the progressive only make up 30 to 40% tops. And when it comes to facing a condorcent nominee, or rather an uncrowded field, that wouldn't have been enough for him to win. Because no matter how loyal and how active the most hardcore progressive voter is, their vote still only counts as one vote. When it comes to elections, you have to go wide, not deep. And vindicating progressives wouldn't have been enough to win over the majority of people which the Democratic Party makes up of. So these were the factors that came into effect when Andrew Yang decided to endorse Bernie Sanders. Because remember, Andrew Yang is advocating for his policies, not necessarily any particular candidate that he personally likes. I think it's obvious that Andrew Yang liked Bernie Sanders. You could actually see that in how he supported him in New York with this civil lawsuit to keep him on the ballot. So Andrew Yang likes Bernie Sanders, but he cares about his policies more. So on March 10th of the primary, did it make more sense to support the candidate that was very obviously losing in wider margins in 2016, was losing portions of his voting blocks, and very likely would not have become the nominee? Or was it better to support the already winning candidate earlier in the hopes that he could gain more recognition on his platform, so that things such as universal basic income and nuclear power could be thrusted into mainstream politics? Andrew Yang said himself on multiple occasions he would support the winning nominee no matter what. And the reason he supported Joe Biden even sooner was because he wanted to help unite the party, or instill the ideas of uniting the party before the November election. Because he worried that waiting too late would have led to the same issues with Hillary Clinton in 2016. He just wanted more people to be more supportive earlier to get that idea in the field so that the party could be united against Donald Trump. Because he is running as a Democrat and his priority is still to defeat Donald Trump. And if he's a sellout for endorsing someone solely off of the basis of unity, then Bernie Sanders is a sellout too on two different occasions. He did endorse Joe Biden in this cycle, but he also endorsed Hillary Clinton in 2016. This is just how politics is. Now, Bernie Sanders and Andrew Yang, they are probably the least sellout people in Washington, but they're still just gears in this massive machine. I'm convinced that everyone is a sellout in some way, but hating on Andrew Yang and Bernie Sanders for their endorsements, that to me is just a very mundane reason to hate either of them. And certainly not a reason to call either of them a traitor. Because in politics, everyone is just looking out to pass their own political agenda no matter what. In the world of politics, it's not about winning, it's about grinding. Grinding your feet through the floor in order to push for the policy that you want. That to me is what a real successful politician is. The unfortunate truth is that when looking into politics, it's important not to get angry, upset, or personal with what is happening, because even the people involved have very little control of what is happening in the world around them.